Why does American food just hit different? Thousands of international tourists are coming for the World Cup, but staying for the food. But what is it about the food that makes it so gosh darn irresistible? Hello, Internet! Welcome to Food Theory, the show whose goal is to provide you with the best food content in the world! And if you couldn't tell, your boy is absolutely stoked on the World Cup right now. Not just because Messi continues to stave off Father Time, and I hope he's continued to do so by the time the episode comes out, or because it's the greatest event in the world, but because this year, one of the host countries is the US. This is the first time I'm actively living in the host country during the World Cup, and the energy is on a whole nother level. It's hard to go into this episode without addressing the elephant in the room. So let me just super quickly be real for a moment and say, I get it. The US has had a lot of problems as of late. Like a lot of problems, okay? A lot. Too many to count, one might say. But the thing I love most about soccer and the World Cup is that every 4 years, we set aside all of that nastiness. And in its place, we get a month of unity and healthy patriotism and the most pure footy you can imagine. However, while this year I was expecting glorious goals, thrilling upsets, and Messi being Messi, and I hope he's continued to do so by the time this episode comes out, what I did not expect was there to be such a big chatter online about the food. I can't go more than 2 swipes on social media without seeing stories of tourists from around the world visiting the US for the World Cup and being absolutely blown away by the food. One German influencer described Taco Bell as the Holy Land, and I can't wholly disagree. He also said lives were changed after trying Raising Cane's for the first time. Yeah, and I kinda disagree there. But a Scottish influencer shared similar biblical allegories, claiming he found the Promised Land at his hotel breakfast, and after trying some Carolina barbecue ribs, remarked that other meat is just ruined for him now. In fact, the Scots were having such a good time that Boston ran short on beer. Friggin' Boston! And this is just the tip of the iceberg. I've seen videos of Brits trying IHOP, Japanese patrons dining on Southern comfort food, or Swedes discovering the wonders of ranch dressing. In fact, these tourists are so desperate to smuggle ranch back into their carry-ons that the TSA had to send out a passive-aggressive tweet telling them to stop. Kraft even made these TSA-safe packets, and no notes. And don't get me wrong, I know that America has some pretty dope-ass food. I mean, I'm here, aren't I? But I guess I always took for granted just how good American food can be. Like, we all know the memes. American food is too sweet, too fatty, too red 40. But clearly there's some special sauce, yeah, and I'm not just talking about ranch, that makes American food just hit different. So today we're going from sea to shining sea, over the amber waves of grain, to figure out what it is about American food that's giving all these World Cup tourists such an out-of-body experience. Of course, the first place that anyone would look when discussing what makes American food special would be one of the things that makes America special, our big, beautiful melting pot. You can go to pretty much any city in the US and you'll find Chinese food, Italian food, Mexican, Thai, Yemeni, Ethiopian. If a food culture exists, you'll find it somewhere in the States, and probably somewhere close to you. And you know what else is close to you? A doctor. One that you're probably not going to because you didn't use our sponsor for today's video, ZocDoc. We've been working with ZocDoc for damn near a year, and it's because I truly believe in them as a partner. I've shared how much my body has broken down through the years of sports, climbing mountains, and having to carry Tom in every performance we do together. And ZocDoc has been the reason that I've been able to find the right care for me every time without any guesswork. With my most recent injury, this stupid dumb shoulder that refuses to stay in the socket and the ligaments around it that at this point are pretty much just there for moral support, I was able to find an orthopedic surgeon just 5 minutes from me with amazing reviews from actual people. I made an appointment for the very next day, went in there, barely waited, and they sent me on my way with some pain management and physical therapy that I'm actively doing. Because apparently, carrying a 15-pound human dumbbell with my shoulders hunched for hours a day isn't great for shoulder health. Who'd have thunk? ZocDoc makes it easy to book in-network appointments with more than 150,000 healthcare providers, so no matter what you're looking for, you can find convenient care for you. So if life decides to hit you with something different, make sure to click my link in the description below or go to ZocDoc.com/thefoodtheorists to find a top-rated doctor today. Thank you so much to ZocDoc for continuing to partner with us. dig back into American food. These immigrant groups aren't just bringing their dishes to the metaphorical table. They're also bringing all those sweet, glorious spices. For example, take oregano. Oregano made its way to the U.S.'s shores around the early 1900s, thanks to Italian and Greek immigrants. But it wouldn't become a universal standard in American kitchens until after World War II, when returning soldiers who had tasted oregano during the Italian campaigns raved about it. And that's just one example. There's Chinese five-spice, turmeric, and coriander from South Asian curry. Heck, even black pepper, one of the default American spices, was not originally native to the New World. And once these new flavors, spices, and heat profiles reached the American shores, they started to be mixed and matched, creating entirely new and truly American dishes. And no dish best exemplifies the real melting pot of American food quite like gumbo. Gumbo is a delicious, thick stew that is most commonly associated with the city of New Orleans. But gumbo wouldn't exist if it weren't for the mixing of cultures and ingredients. For example, gumbo's three main thickeners have all vastly different origins that just so happen to coalesce in the Crescent City to create one of its most iconic dishes. Roux, a mix of fat and flour, was a staple of the huge French population living in the city. The only problem was flour shipped all the way from Europe tended to spoil quickly, so other thickeners had to be added in order to give gumbo that thickness. Filet powder made from ground sassafras leaves had been foraged by the native Choctaw people for centuries. Meanwhile, okra, a must for gumbo, originally came from West Africa and was brought to America as a result of the transatlantic slave trade. What, you didn't expect bummers to be in this story? This is American history we're talking about, alright? But regardless, all three of these ingredients from different corners of the globe were able to come together and make a dish that's uniquely multicultural. And because America is so non-homogeneous, these sorts of regional dishes with their own special quirks are a dime a dozen across the country. Just look at the sheer number of variety of things like barbecue, hot dogs, or even pizza. Chicago deep dish, for example. During the late 19th and early 20th century, a lot of people from Naples, Italy immigrated to the Chicagoland area. And with them came their preferred pizza variety, Neapolitan style. That was until 1943 when two American entrepreneurs, Ike Sewell and Richard Ricardo, decided to take the idea of the Neapolitan pizza and quite literally turn it on its head, creating the first ever deep dish pizza. And I know, deep dish is very divisive, but it's just a perfect example of how America can take a cultural dish and Americify it. Of course, sometimes this Americification ends up turning these dishes into something barely recognizable to the native tasters. I mean, I could do a whole episode on how the stuff we consider Chinese food is so foreign to people living in China that it's laughable. Let me know if you'd want to see that in the comments, because I would love to talk about it. But of course, if we're going to talk about the Americification of food, we have to talk about how every last bite here is optimized for maximum tastiness, leading to the heavenly reactions we've seen from our World Cup tourists. And the reason why comes down to choice. Americans are absolutely spoiled for choices when it comes to their food. I mean, have you ever been to a Walmart before? It's a wonder any of us can walk out of an aisle without our heads exploding from decision fatigue. Take Captain Crunch as just one example. We have like a half dozen different varieties of just Captain. You want regular Captain Crunch? We got that. You want Captain Crunch with a little bit of crunch berries? We got that too. And if you're feeling particularly spicy, we could just give you an entire box of crunch berries and pretend it was an industrial accident. Objectively, the best industrial accident you can have happen, but point is, Americans are overflowing with options. But that presents a problem for all of our restaurants and brands. If customers have literally thousands of possible things they could eat, how do you make them choose your product? Enter the Holy Trinity. What is the Holy Trinity, you ask? Well, long ago, in the fires of Mount Doom, three tastes were forged in secret that could turn any meal into a delectable morsel. They were called salt, fat, and sugar. Together, they were known as the Holy Trinity of hyperpalatability. Anyway, we all know that if you make your food saltier, fattier, or sweeter, it's gonna taste better. It's practically a cheat code. And it works so well because we're sort of evolutionarily wired to love these tastes. Salt helps regulate fluid balance in our body. Fat is a component of our cell membranes, and sugar is a source of energy. Having access to these nutrients was critical to our survival. So our bodies end up rewarding us for finding these flavors by giving us that mouthfeel that the characters get in Food Wars. Whoa, no, that's a bad editor. You know we can't show that on here. Now, if you're, say, a chip manufacturer and you want your chip to stand out among the hordes of other potato products, you're gonna have to do everything you can to maximize the salt, sweet, and fattiness of your product. In fact, food scientists have a word for this. It's called the bliss point, the perfect balance of the holy trinity where you take a bite and think, oh my god, this chip is literally crack. And you'd be right. And the brands that don't maximize for this bliss point, they get left in the dust, leading to an arms race that makes American food sweeter, fattier, saltier, but also tastier. Whether you're a big food brand, a fast food chain, or just your local pizzeria, the ultimate goal is to make your food as broadly appealing as possible. It's probably also the reason why American food has a reputation for being on the bland side. The more exotic flavors you add, the less broadly appealing it is. It's why overseas you see such cool chip flavors or limited edition items at fast food restaurants, but here in the US, we get the same old. But it's absolutely not the same old to the World Cup tourists who are experiencing Southern barbecue or their smuggled tubs of ranch for the first time. However, if this was a game of Family Feud and Steve Harvey asked you what makes American food hit different, our melting pot and our, frankly, unhealthy relationship with salt and fat would probably have been the first answers on the board, but they wouldn't be the top one. There is actually something else that our World Cup watchers have come out and said has been the most shocking thing about their American food experience: the hospitality. Here's the thing. If American dining has one reputation, it's that our portion sizes are absolutely massive. From full racks of barbecue ribs to slices of pizza bigger than a toddler. And that's not just our imagination either. Studies have shown that portion sizes at US restaurants can be somewhere between 25 and 72% larger than their European counterparts. And that's probably not even taking into account Texas, where everything there is 25 to 72% larger than everywhere else in the country. So why are the portions so big? Well, part of it comes down to getting the most bang for our buck. Americans value, and so restaurants erring on the side of caution would prefer to give you more food than they think you can eat. In turn, this makes you feel like you're being treated like a guest in someone's home. And if you can't finish everything off on your massive plate, no problem, sugar. Just grab yourself a box. The United States has a very well-established leftover culture. While getting your din-din to go isn't unheard of in other parts of the world, it's practically second nature in the US. Around 91% of American restaurant goers admit that they take home restaurant leftovers on occasion, with nearly a third doing so regularly. So the larger portions aren't an inconvenience, they're a bonus. And speaking of bonus, you know what else you get when you visit a US restaurant? Free refills, baby! At least for now. That's been going away more and more lately, and that's just anti-American. But again, similar to take-home containers, while free refills aren't a unique American experience, Americans have come to expect free refills, especially fountain drinks, as a given. And mathematically speaking, they're not wrong to demand it. On average, a single 32-ounce fountain drink you might get alongside your meal at a restaurant might cost you around $2.50. But for the restaurant, oh boy, they're robbing you blind. Blind, I say! The cost for the syrup used to make that Coca-Cola only cost the restaurant about 15 cents. Those soda fountains might as well be ATMs for the restaurant. So yeah, if I want a second or 12th helping, I'ma get it. Again, it gives customers a sense of value. And you know what else I'm gonna get with my meal? Some mother heckin' free bread. On more occasions than I care to admit, I've gone to Texas Roadhouse just because I got a hankering for some of those dinner rolls. I don't even like the cinnamon butter that much. Sue me. But regardless, it's always free of charge. And that bread doesn't just limit hangry customers, there's also some evidence that it actually increases appetite and leads to bigger tips. So more bread means more bread. But in all honesty, I've never really given the free bread at restaurants much of a thought, which is why when I saw that one of the Japanese soccer fans posted on Twitter about his experience with free chips and salsa, I'll admit, it kind of brought a tear to my eye. Chips, salsa, unrequested, free. I stopped the waiter. We have not earned these. They just come with the table, man. I ate with the gravity the moment deserved. They have wells of salsa. The supply lines of this nation are beyond anything my ancestors imagined. The whole tweet goes incredibly hard. Bro, I want chips, salsa, unrequested, free, tattooed on my friggin' stomach, Tupac style. But he's not wrong. The bottomless wells of salsa, the free Coke refills, they really are a gift. Something you get not for being a good customer, but for just being a customer. gamer. And that's something I really wouldn't have thought about if it weren't for these incredible fans trekking all the way here for the World Cup. That's why sports and food are just so freaking cool. They really are the two things that not only can bring us together, both around tables and TVs, but allow us to get a glimpse into each other's culture. Not only did this Japanese man learn about American hospitality, but I got a bit of insight into how Japan views hospitality. Going back to the tweet, in my land, hospitality is a debt. Every gift creates an obligation, weighed carefully, returned in the proper season with interest to feeling. Here, the gift arrives before you've even proven you can pay for dinner. And that's sort of the awesome thing about food, especially here in the US. Food can literally be the medium for people coming to this country to assimilate. Heck, everyone needs to eat after all. There are so many examples of new immigrant groups coming to this country and using the power of our stomachs to assimilate into this big melting pot. But just to name a few, in the early 1800s, thousands of German immigrants moved into the American Northeast and Midwest. With them, they brought their sourdough breads and lagers. But they also brought something else with them that now feels as American as apple pie: the Hamburg steak, named after the German city of Hamburg. It was made of a patty of minced beef and onions. Eventually, someone thought to slip this German delicacy between two slices of bread, and boom, modern hamburgers were born. Take the Frankfurter, named after the German city of Frankfurt, which developed into the hot dog. Heck, the term Wiener comes from the Vienna sausages, named after the Austrian capital. The two foods that we think of as classically American have their origins from elsewhere, but they were brought here, adapted, and ended up helping to define what American even is, much like the immigrants who brought the food with them. Later on, many Eastern European immigrants, particularly Ashkenazi Jews, opened hundreds of delicatessens all across cities like New York. As a result, the bagel, the corned beef on rye, the lox have become so ingrained in New York culture, it's almost impossible to separate the two. Chinese immigrants who started to settle in the Bay Area thanks to the California Gold Rush and the construction of the transcontinental railroads were able to establish themselves in these communities through the lens of food. And we don't even need to go back in history to find more examples. Today, in Aurora, Colorado, there's a place known as Mango House. It's got some healthcare clinics, several places of worship, but it's also home to a food hall that's pretty special. It's refugee run. People escaping some of the most unimaginable horrors in Syria, Nepal, Somalia, Myanmar, Lebanon, Ukraine are all giving back to the country that welcomed them in by serving the US a little bit of their country. To the people of Aurora, these refugees aren't the characterizations that are often demonized on TV. Somalia isn't just some scary place far away. It's the place with that dope baris iskakaris. So that's why American food hits different. It's not because the food is unique to the US, but because it's not. It's an amalgamation of the cultures that have helped define what American even is, and amplified by the values of, well, abundance, but also generosity that are supposed to be fundamental to this country. Not to get too mushy, because again, far from perfect, but American food is special because the United States, at least at a fundamental level, in an ideal sense, in the philosophical what it should have been, in theory, is a special place. The place where the son of Argentinian parents that grew up in Hong Kong and didn't even come to live here full time until he was 16 can talk about his love of food to millions of people all across the globe. Yes, the portions are too big, the food is less than healthy, and the country's a whole other issue. But just like the members of a soccer team, we are all working towards the same goal: good eats, good sports, and good people. And that is not just a theory. That's a food fact. Buen provecho. And if you're interested in talking about more of the weird quirks of American food culture, click the card on screen to watch me absolutely shred our tipping culture. And as always, I'll see you next week.